You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element 451.
And I'm Daniela Norden, Element 451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element 451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. All right, everybody, welcome back to In Your Element. I am super excited to welcome today's guest, Ryan Hogan. You are the VP of Enrollment Management, Marketing, Communication, a huge title, I think, at Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College, which we affectionately refer to as ABAC. So welcome, Ryan. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited because you are the 2024 Boltie winner for student engagement. So first of all, congratulations. What an honor. And secondly, we're just going to jump right into this because student engagement is such a hot topic for us at Element 451 and for higher ed. Let's dive right in. How do you define student engagement? Ryan, yourself as VP, and maybe also how does ABAC define student engagement?
Yeah, so, the name of the game is personalization. And that's something that we really strive to do at ABAC is talk to our students as individuals, where they're coming from, what they're interested in, and not talking to our students the same way we do 5,000 others. And so that's been a conscious effort through the Element implementation is making sure that we use the system to try to accomplish that personalization goal. And it's an honor to be recognized for that.
What are some of the personalization or ways that you personalize, I guess? What do you focus on?
Really, what the student is interested in terms of their major, that's a big part of it. Also, what they're interested in doing while they're a student here, that's been a conscious effort as well, too. The other thing that we're really trying to do is educate those that might not be from around our area. So, ABAC is a small school located in South Georgia. We don't have the name recognition. So we really want to be mindful if we're communicating with students from outside of our region, really sort of educating them on who we are. We don't want to assume everybody knows who we are. So really sort of segmenting those populations of those that are close by and those that aren't close by, and how we talk to them is definitely different.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, it's so funny. A lot of the verbiage used, a lot of things you talk about is very, it makes sense to us because, right, we use Element. We know what you're talking about, segmenting and being able to personalize at scale to these different demographics and personas. But I want to take a second and actually go back in time. What were you guys doing before you started using Element? And how has that shifted and changed since you've came onto it? Because that's, I think, would be a aha moment for some of our listeners.
Absolutely. So I just joined the ABAC team 9 months ago. So before this, it was really just sort of doing what we could. And when I came on board, we really had more focused strategic level discussions. And I feel like that is so often the case in higher ed that we really just kind of deal with what's in front of us. We got to drive applications. So we have to send messages to our student populations about applying. And so one of the things that we tried to focus on was we can't just send a message saying, hey, apply, hey, apply. We really need to educate the student on the brand and who we are. And so that was sort of a conscious effort, especially now that we have Element, we have the ability to focus that personalization.
I love this, especially you mentioned that brand and that education. I think that a lot of our partners forget that they're not, or they don't have the recognition of a state college or of a Harvard or of a Princeton. So this is so important because your message is going to hit that right student that may not have known about you, right? Because you're focusing on getting that information from them and really knowing what they're interested in. Like that's huge, Ryan. I think a lot of partners could relate to that.
I agree. And, the other thing too, Daniela, is what we've tried to do with the Element system is engage the student into a conversation, right? So not just sort of pushing one-way communication, here's who we are, apply, but really trying to bring that student into a conversation with us. So the texting piece of the platform has really allowed us to do that. So we can really try to send mass type messages in a personalized way. But when that student comes back, then we're able to engage with the student on an individual level.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cause so it's so funny, even sometimes whenever I'm talking to schools that are looking at Element and we even say the word two-way communication, like, wait a minute, you mean we can talk back? And it's like, yeah, you can. And to your point, that should be the goal, right? Engaging with them. And that's where the power is how do you find out to give them, because the engagement comes from curiosity, right? And it comes from you telling them the right information. So being able to personalize those campaigns, the messages that are going out to them is going to continue to pique that curiosity. And then you get to decide where you want to drive them. Is that to a conversation? Is it to an application? Is it to an event? And I think that strategy that you guys are intentionally approaching is something that, again, I think people want to do a lot. They don't have the capability with the platforms they're using, or they're so segmented that it becomes difficult.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, Brendan, I think institutions really need to take a high level overview of everything that they're doing. So I just had, you talked about an aha moment. I just had that moment with one of my faculty members who's running an event on campus. She's always run this event. She does a great job running the event, but some of the logistics, it's not been very well, but she didn't really have the support. And so we actually just left a meeting where we talked about, we can use Element to get the students to register for her event, but it's a cattle show. So there's things that happen throughout the day where it's like, we need to push a text message out to the students to say, hey, it's your time to go here. And one of the things that just came up was, okay, well, what if they have questions? And I said, yeah, the student can come back and say, hey, I'm lost. And we can have staff that are sitting there communicating. And so that's great for this event, but it also aids in the overall perception for our brand that I'm really wanting to do. Personalization, it's all about you, and so really trying to incorporate that into all different levels of the institution. That's been a focus piece of our strategy.
Such a great example. Can you imagine if you were at an open house or a cattle show? Also, just really cool that you have a cattle show and program, and right?
That's
and
awesome.
Being able to text like "I'm lost" or "What's the next step?" or "Where am I supposed to go?" I think that it's important for engagement, for perception, but maybe even also like empathy. It feels like, Ryan, like to meet that student where they are. Applying to college can be so overwhelming, especially if you're a first generation student. And to know that there's somebody seemingly on the other end of that phone is 100% going to make a difference in that student experience.
Absolutely. And, Daniela, one of the research points that has been consistent over the last 10 to 15 years as students choose a college because they feel like that college wants them. So anything that we can do, even if you're at our cattle show and we're taking customer service to that next level, you're lost, you've got questions, we're there. That really sort of aids in that perception, is that we want that student at ABAC. So that really, the system allows us to be able to do that and reinforce that point in everything that we do.
I love that. That's like one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. Students choose a college because the college wants them, right? They see that a college wants them. It resonates a lot with what we talk about here, which is, we're driving to make personal connections, right? Through engagement, digital engagement, right? And so that is it. Whenever you make a connection, you're showing that relationship, that you want to be a part of that relationship with these students. And how can you do, and this is where the question gets us, how do you do that at scale and making it personalized? And I think that the intentionality, the strategy, but then coupled with the technology, right? And so I guess that'll lead into my next question is, as far as making those connections, showing students that you do want them, what has been the biggest technology piece that you've seen that's impacted y'all's journey in that way?
So the big piece that we did, and this is, whenever anyone asks us, feedback on the CRM and things like that, one of the things that I always point to is the ability to shift strategy within, a moment's notice. So our orientation registration process was a little complex. And so soon after I got here, we had implemented the microsite. So our applicants, once they're accepted, they could come in. But we shifted the orientation registration into an event through the microsite. And so students could register themselves for a session. So it was a shift than what has been done here in the past. And again, we made that shift in about a week. So about a week, we were able to really revamp the way students registered for orientation. Think about the ways that we communicated, hey, go register for it. And then even the ways once the student did register for it, what the follow-up communication was and that sort of thing. And so we had very, very, very high success in terms of the number of students that registered for orientation than in the past.
Ryan, thank you for sharing this example. So you are in a bit of a privileged role in that you're VP and that you can sort of make that call and shift on the dime. What advice do you have for leaders in saying, hey, it's okay to shift that strategy? Because I think a lot of times we work with those end users, those day-to-day operators in Element 451 who see exactly this. It's time to make the shift, or this could be better for the student experience, and have a hard time bringing that to a leader who would be flexible. Tell us just, in that leadership role, you mentioned big picture, some tips for helping these partners out when it comes to this.
Yeah. So, the first thing is if the phrase comes up, well, this is the way we've always done it. Red flag.
Oh, Lord, help us all.
Get it out of here.
Huge red flag.
Red flag, right? If an enrollment leader is saying that, that's usually something that needs to be thought of. The other thing that's sort of interesting about Element is the community that comes from it as well, too. So I had that conversation with other leaders where I picked up the phone and I was like, look, this is the way that we've done things in the past. I'm thinking about changing it up a little bit. What do you think? And so really sort of leaning on the community from within Element, that's not just the Daniela, the Brendans, those folks, but, the industry leaders that are part of the community as well, too. So it really, you got to sort of get out of your own way a little bit sometimes as the leader to understand maybe we need to rethink things a little bit.
You're preaching today. You're preaching. Because I think that is the biggest problem, is creating buy-in, right? But getting out of your own way. Because I can't tell you how many times people will step into looking for a new platform, and the only thing they can talk about is what they've been doing with the one that they had. And it's like, well, what are you looking for a new one for then? Why are you stopping to look at something new if you just want to continue to do things the way that you've always done it? And there's this sense of, and it's part of humanity, right? This resistance to change that can be so difficult, but without friction, you don't get heat, right? There's no growth. You have to prune to get growth. And so that's always going to be an uncomfortable situation. So how do what are the things that you have seen have been most impactful to be the catalyst for that kind of challenge to your team members?
Yeah. So, and I think we are so guilty in higher ed to make decisions based on anecdotal, personal decisions, right? Like I've had folks before say, well, my kid doesn't read emails. Therefore, we as an institution no longer need to send emails. And so one of the things that I've always tried to focus my entire career on is data-driven decisions. And so we introduce surveys to our students once they enroll, so the students can tell us what went well and what did not go well. We also have surveys that go to the students that did not enroll, so they can tell us, maybe some of those things. And so really sort of looking at that data and sort of thinking strategically, especially with a system like Element, to see what are the challenges that we're seeing. How can the software address some of those different things instead of, like you said, Brendan, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we did our last one, but really sort of letting the data drive where we go has always been sort of my strategy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so good. I love that you're surveying students who didn't enroll. I can tell you how many times I've sat on campus and there's a sophomore in the room, one sophomore from a very specific town, a very specific experience. And the administration would be like, well, this sophomore said that email did not, and you're sitting there like, well, I'm a professional. I've gone through college. I've studied this. I have this experience, but this sophomore's experience is sort of outweighing. It's a tough place to be in. So the more data you can get, the better you can make your case. I'm all for it. Ryan, those conversations that you're having up with those data-driven decisions, are they big picture? Are they trends? Are they nitty gritty? Like, what are the conversations that you're driving and having?
All of the above, right?
Oh, really?
So all of the above. And, I think especially with the changes in the FAFSA this year, I think we all are kind of going, is that the reason, things have shifted and maybe what students are wanting? So it's really sort of everything. If students are saying, I didn't hear as much about academics, and that's the reason that I didn't enroll, then we need to kind of dive into our communication plan and some of the strategies a little bit. So it's sort of like big picture, little picture, all of the above. And to be honest, not everything is actionable. So to your point, just because that one sophomore said this is what I liked and what I didn't like, we don't always have to make decisions on that. But it's one of those things that we look at, we acknowledge, we decide whether or not. The other thing that, in terms of advice for leaders in similar positions of mine, is listen to the team. Most of our team here at ABAC has been here a while. They're very well connected with the students. So when we look at that data, I'll bring that to the team and go, what do you all think about this? Some might go, you know what? I've heard this from the students. I know this is a challenge that we need to go. Some might say, no, they might not be 100% on that. So we file it away. And then if we see that trend come back up, that's something we need to look into.
Listen to the team. Like, let's print it on the walls.
Right.
And put it behind everybody. That's such a good one. It's so important.
Yeah, that's incredible. So let me ask you this. So all the trends, all the data that you're seeing, it's a result of the things that you've done, the things that you've built. And I'm curious, is there anything specifically, a campaign that you've built in Element, something that you've done in Element that you're exceptionally proud of, and kind of results of it? Like, was it like, what's kind of like some of the data that you've seen from something that has been the most impactful for you all?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did recently is we launched a Nursing at Night program. So, we are very rural. We have a campus over in Bainbridge, Georgia, and, industry says that there's a nursing shortage throughout the country, but especially in the rural area. And so we started a new Nursing at Night program. And so through Element, we designed a nice custom landing page with an RFI form where, it's sort of, think about it like this, and I'm 24 years into my career. Sometimes older practices would have been like, we're just going to send an email and say, hey, apply. But again, going back to sort of educating the student on the program. So we designed a series of messages that all directed the student back to that landing page. We also did a digital media campaign where we were serving students ads in a digital environment that brought them back to that Element landing page. And we had a really great response. We had over 200 students register for our virtual and on-campus events. And again, that might not sound like a lot, but for Bainbridge, Georgia, that's really great. I mean,
I was about to say,
really
that is
great.
good, man.
It's the
That's
whole city.
awesome.
That's the whole city of Bainbridge. Oh, that's I have to ask too, Ryan. So future wise, so we've got these campaigns, they're working, you've got student engagement, you set a high bar with like the Boltie. What's next? Like what's coming down the pipeline for you guys?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're really focusing on is sort of educating students on the brand earlier than we've done in the past. Going back to research, right? Data-driven decisions. Research shows students start looking for their colleges sometimes in their sophomore, junior year. So we've really focused an effort on that, of really starting engaging students as early as possible in that sophomore year and using the system for that. And again, not just sending a message saying, hey, come visit, but hey, Brendan, we know what program you're interested in. We know where you're from. Here are some of the things that might interest you, and then sort of engage with them that way. And again, back to that conversation, right?
Yep.
We don't want to just start engaging that student their senior year and talking with them about applying. We want to start engaging with them about the academic program they're interested, scheduling that visit, talking about our scholarship programs. Interesting factoid about ABAC is 59% of our students graduate without college debt.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Phenomenal.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so, in uncertain economic times where people are questioning the value of higher ed, and especially the cost, we can have those conversations earlier than that senior year.
I'm sorry, I just can't get over that. That's phenomenal.
Such a large number, 59%. And that is like, especially where we're at today in society, you have all everything on the news about, student loan debt and all these things. Right. And it's a big concern on the radar of everyone that's going to college now is, I don't want to be in that. If they're not already in that position, they don't want to be in that position to need that relief and to need that help. So that is huge. And being able to educate on that's been some of honestly, we've done a handful of these so far, and hearing the programs in the schools and the intentionality around getting students educated and putting them in a position to succeed once they graduate is so important than just providing them the right classes and the right content for where they're going to. Because being in higher ed before I was here at Element, I was at some schools where that really wasn't the focus. It was get people in the door, get them in class, get them graduated. But then at the end, if they go out with 70, 80 grand in debt, they'll figure it out.
That's on you,
and
right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's you're that. Did we educate them on the fact that they have to pay back their loans? That was the question we asked. It's not of like, how do we make sure that they don't have to go through that after they're gone from here? So anyway, that is so powerful.
Well, it's interesting, Brendan, and something that we don't like to talk about in higher ed, but it's a fact. Higher ed's a business. And so with any business, you got to prove your ROI, you got to prove your outcomes and your successes. And I think that has sort of been an underlying thing that's happened in higher ed. And I think the pandemic really sort of blew the lid off that, if you will. And so a lot of students are making that consumer choice of who's going to have the best ROI in terms of cost and outcomes and things like that. And those are the things that we are focused on. Our price point is at a really good spot for our students. And then we have phenomenal donors that support our students. We just gave out $1.1 million in scholarship, and that impacted over 900 students.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's 59% rate of students graduating without college debt is a number of different factors, but communicating those to them has been one of the things that we've focused on through Element.
I was just going to say, it feels like a full circle moment because you're educating about the brand, but you want them to know that we want you, that we offer that program that you want, and that you can graduate and be successful and actually start hitting the ground running. You're not worried about paying back that debt, right off the bat. And the fact that you can do that seamlessly within a system and track those engagements and those data points and getting out ahead of your competitors, honestly. I mean, that's what we're talking about. If we're going to talk about a business, you got that text message out first, you got that email out first, you talk to them first. That really makes a difference in this economy.
It does. And, the other thing too, Daniela, that we've done with Element, which was different than previous CRMs that I had, is we've gone full student life cycle limit. So, and what's great about it, and I'm sort of educating you on your product, so I know you know this, but for anyone listening, is that we have our financial aid office in the system, our bursary, so they're communicating with students about, different things while they're here. So in my career, we had students tell us before, admissions did a great job getting me here, and then communications fell flat. And so we've made a very conscious effort to use the system to help us improve those retention rates and persistence to graduation. So the product, as you know, the product's not limited on number of licenses in there. And so we have almost everybody in there communicating.
This is so important because I think for a long time, people have made enrollment synonymous with admissions, and that's not the case. It does not stop at admissions. Retention matters, graduation matters. And I think so often people that traditional enrollment is getting them in the door and leaving them. The fact that you can have all of those offices centralized, talking to each other and on the same page with a student makes a huge difference for enrollment the way it should be, right?
And we have to look at our students as consumers. If they're not happy, they will make a different choice, right? And so through those, communications through the other areas, we can hear if something's not going well with the students and try to address it. So again, all factors towards retention.
It's great. It's awesome.
So incredible.
Well, we have a tradition on the In Your Element podcast, Ryan, where we ask our guests a specific question. I feel like Brendan and I also try to guess what the answer is after we've talked to folks. So I'll be surprised to know what your answer is here. But Ryan, when do you feel truly in your element in the work that you do?
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to do your guess first?
Oh, no. Well,
Brendan knows me a little well. Brendan knows me kind of. Right. So.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that especially after having this conversation and getting to know I feel like whenever we have these, we get to see the heart of the people that we're talking to, not only of the institution, but of the person we're actually talking to. And, what I've seen from you is being able to build relationships with the students that you talk with. And I think that being able to have that impact through the work that you do, even though you may not get to talk and brush shoulders with every single one of them, I can see that you seem invigorated by the fact of you make those students feel seen and feel understood. So, and that is part of building a relationship is, serving others. And I see that in kind of what you've done and weaved in and out of what you've talked about. Yeah. So anyway, that's my guess.
No, I'm going to agree. I think your passion for serving the students comes through, and your care. I don't know if that's like the right word, but absolutely the care for making sure these students feel seen, feel heard, and get the resources that they need. So whatever your answer is going to be has to include students now, Ryan. No pressure.
Yeah. No, and you're so right. And you both are sort of definitely in the ballpark. One of the things that I talk about with our team almost every meeting, almost every day, is that we don't need to lose sight that every day we come to work, we have the ability to change someone's life, right? And I talk about this at orientation, is that the student we meet as a sophomore, junior, or even on the flip side of things, the 40-year-old mom or dad who are coming back to school after life has happened, that person that we meet is totally different than the person we see on graduation, right? And what is the difference in that? The transformational power of education. And so that we have a front row seat to that. I don't know too many industries other than the medical field where doctors are quite literally saving people's lives. But we definitely have the ability to change someone's life through education. Yeah. We don't ever want to lose sight of that. But, to get back to when I'm in my element, it's definitely, that sort of thing impacting students. But really, I think if I had to sum it up in one word, is collaboration. I love sort of, the meeting I just left where we were talking about a cattle show. We rolled up our sleeves and we were like, okay, what's this thing? And the faculty members doing a great job making sure that the cows are there and everything that she has to do. And then we swoop in with the communication and make it just even better. That's when I'm in my element, is collaborating with others to make a positive impact on students through education.
That's beautiful. And it's funny, listening to you kind of talk through that. One of the one things that stood out for me in this interview was whenever you said even students that don't choose to come here, that don't apply, you still reach out to them in thinking about the impact you could potentially have on those students, that once they say no or they don't move forward, to see that there is even that additional step of care. And sure, it's going to help you indicate what you need to do better, but they also see someone that cares, and maybe that it's a no for now, and then in 6 months or a year, it's now a yes, right? And those students, those no's can also be the catalyst for life change and the intentionality that you're showing there. So that's awesome. I love that.
Ryan, just open forum before we sign off for this episode. Anything you wish we would have asked you? Anything you want anybody to know about ABAC, student engagement, about Ryan? One last call for anything you want to say.
We are one of the few institutions that has a rodeo in the middle of the campus. So if anybody finds themselves passing through us in South Georgia, come down. It's a great time. I mean, it's a great time. It's great education, but a wonderful experience.
That is Brendan and my personal invitation to come to the rodeo. Right?
Sounds like we're going to be. Sounds like we're coming to the rodeo. All right,
I would love it.
I'm not too far away. South Georgia, Florida, not too big of a gap there. So
we're 40 miles from the line.
Oh. Beautiful.
Gotta go, Brendan. Gotta go.
I'm going.
Oh, this
I
is
feel
awesome.
like I feel like I'm going to be going. I'm going to bring my. I don't personally have a cowboy hat, but you know who does have a cowboy hat? Artis has a cowboy hat, so I'll steal Artis's cowboy hat
and we'll all
go to the rodeo. Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
He just won't be able to go, or at least he won't be able to wear it at the rodeo. So anyway, Ryan, thanks so much. This has been awesome. I feel like we've learned so much about ABAC. Yeah, I feel like we've learned so much about ABAC, so much about you through this conversation. And I think there's been a wealth of knowledge for the listeners to be like, this is how engagement should be done. And I think I think everything you guys are doing, the intentionality and the buy-in that you're creating at ABAC is truly incredible. So thank you.
In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.